an EU court has actually ruled that obesity can now be seen as a disability, which has a lot of implications.
For this talk show host.
Oh my God!
I'm not laughing. That's horrible. That's horrible.
I'll get to my morbid obesity. Okay.
So it has a lot of implications across the board. It's a little bit of a complicated story, and truth be told, I don't really understand
super poorly written story.
The justice system in England or across the United.
It's very complicated.
The European Union. But I will make a couple of points here. The National Obesity Forum spoke. So the findings of this, it was basically a court case. And the findings of this court case have a lot of really complicated implications that lawyers and academics are trying to understand now, because it's potentially going to set some precedents. So we've got one comment here from Tam Fry, who is the National Obesity Forum spokesperson. And Tam said, "This has opened a can of worms for all employers in this country. They will be required to make adjustments to their furniture and doors and whatever is needed for very large people. I believe it will also cause friction in the workplace between obese people and other workers. 1 in 4 adults in the UK is obese."
This is
friction.
This
How
guy
small
is
is
with
the
the
room?
Tam Fry is with the National
Yeah.
Obesity Forum.
This is how measured they are in England compared to the US,
But
by
I
the
mean,
way.
I can't tell. I guess I guess that's to get people to stop being obese. He's not
That's
a
true. He's
spokesman
not
for.
For obese people.
Right,
oh,
exactly.
I see. I was
Then I'd
confused
be
by
like,
that as well.
Jesus, hire someone else.
And so,
You guys won.
Celebrate a little. Give me a little, give me a little.
Right. Go get some bangers and mash, man. This is good news.
So there were a lot of important points that were made, and I think that Tam Fry's point is one that points to a lot of real potential implications down the line here, which is historically, in order for an individual with obesity to be found to have a disability and probably qualify for whatever the EU's version of what we have here is the Americans with Disabilities Act, protections under the law are, they had to have some underlying medical illness that contributed to the obesity. So this person has, severe diabetes, and we have to make protections for that, or they have some sort of glandular problem that causes them to be morbidly obese, and we have to make protections for that. Now, the person who went to court weighed 160 kilograms. That's 352 pounds. I mean, there are like linebackers who weigh more than that, right?
Mm-hmm. Not linebackers, but football.
Oh,
players.
sorry.
Yeah.
God,
Linemen.
all of the like manly things I had to say today, I misspoke with Xbox and PlayStation, misspoke with linebackers and linemen. So, 352 pounds, this is where things get complicated too, because what are we considering to be obese? What is their frame? How much muscle do they have on them? And why are they obese, I think, is an important issue.
Maybe the guy's just big boned.
Maybe it's just big bone.
So I'll clarify a little bit on the legal issues here. But before I do, I like Ben's idea of go grab some bangers and mash. I like the idea of the obesity spokesperson be like, we really like what they said here in the car. Great job, man. Great job. Hold on, I gotta get some more pie.
This is the sort of discrimination they're fighting against.
Right,
like what you're
exactly, Ben. That's the kind of animal you are. Okay, so it's the European Court of Justice. The reason why there is lack of clarity on this is because the decision is by definition not clear. So here's what they're saying. First of all, this case is not concluded because now that they have set the rule, it goes back to the local jurisdiction to determine if this guy qualifies under the new standards.
Yeah, there's no outcome yet in this guy's particular case.
That's right. So now the thing is, and why this is such a difficult question is, what is the level at which point you say he is obese enough to be disabled, especially because there doesn't have to be an underlying sickness in this case, in Europe now, right? And then point number 2 is, have you, is it a level of personal responsibility? Did he contribute to it, or is there nothing he can do about it? Yeah. And hence it's a disability, right? And that is incredibly hard to determine.
And that's not covered in this ruling at all.
And I think the main thing is then does it really keep him from doing his job?
Yeah, or does it make it so that there need to be accommodations in the workplace to help him do his job? And so there's another quote here from Omer Simji, and this is an employment partner at Irwin Mitchell, which is a law firm. So this, of course, like I said, there are all these legal officials that are trying to make sense of this ruling. And his quote is, This is a significant ruling, and although being fat is not enough in itself to be considered disabled, it could if it restricts an individual's ability to actively and fully engage in their work. That said, it would appear as though there does not need to be an underlying medical condition. This is new and will, in appropriate cases, mean that obesity in its own right can be deemed to be a disability. With 1 in 4 adults in the UK being classed as obese, this represents a major headache for UK businesses. So think about what these business people are going to have to do to accommodate now for basically potentially 1 in 4 of their employees. What are the kinds of accommodations that they're going to have to start making?
So I think this is a really difficult issue, and I'm willing to be swayed on it. I'm close to 50-50, but I think that I agree with the decision of the European Court of Justice because, look, and I'm on whatever perspective I have, I'm on both sides of this, okay? Because I'm an employer, so I don't like pain in the ass rules that don't make sense, right? I don't want that, right? On the other hand, my doctors have adjudicated me to be morbidly obese. Okay, so I feel your pain, brothers. So, and by the way, too many people are classified as obese. I mean, come on, right?
As much as I'd like to make fun of you, you're not morbidly obese.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm overweight. There's no question about that, right? But
you're not
morbidly
like the subject
obese.
of a Discovery Channel
Right,
show.
anyway.
Yeah, you're not.
Right.
I mean, it's a different situation.
So, but that goes to a part of the difficulty in this case. You're right. We've kind of established that. All right. So the reason I think they're kind of right is, look, can there be a situation where the people are discriminating against people who are overweight, who there's nothing they can do about it? The common idea is, well, dude, just shut your mouth and lose weight. Yeah. But a lot of people have, it's genetic, it's this, it's that, and it's not as simple as that, and it's a ridiculous, trite thing to say, right? And so people really might not be able to do anything about it, and they can do their job perfectly well, but some prick discriminates against them and says, oh, I told you to lose weight, buddy, you're out of here, right? When in fact, like this guy, for example, he says, look, I've been minding the children for 15 years, which is the English way of putting it that kind of makes us uncomfortable. But like he's been doing this job for a long time. He's never had any problem doing the job. There's no reason why he should lose his job. It appears.
And that's this particular case. This individual thinks that he was discriminated against because he is fat. He said, I got fired because they're saying I'm too fat, but I'm doing my job just fine. Right. But what the other can of worms that it opens is, will doorways need to be widened? Will furniture need to be changed? Like if we think about, let's say, for example, in the US, airplane seats. There are some individuals that have to buy more than one airplane seat. And I don't think that is actually regulated very well, because we've all been on an airplane where somebody probably should have had to buy more than one airplane seat, but they didn't. Yeah. And that can be incredibly frustrating. And at a certain point, it becomes a difficult conversation to have, because it's like, is it your fault? Should you be liable for twice as much payment? And the same thing in a business setting. Is it your fault that you are experiencing this kind of medical condition? Is this something where, the ADA requires that there are ramps in front of every business so that somebody in a wheelchair can get in. It can't just be stairs. The ADA says that that's not acceptable. Somebody in a wheelchair can't help that they're in a wheelchair. Now, some people that are morbidly obese can't help that they're morbidly obese. What kinds of accommodations are going to need to be made for them?
Also, really fast. So, I think that we're changing on this to some extent over time, because people are becoming so obese, and so many people are becoming obese, especially children. But we always end up talking about fault and obesity, because it does seem to be directly linked to something that you choose to do on a regular basis. And here's a slippery slope that it'll probably never go down this way, but there are many diseases that either there's a behavioral component to the disease, or that you exacerbate it with diet or behavior or lack of fitness. There are even mental problems as you age that could be mitigated to some extent through exercise. Why don't we adjudicate fault on other sorts of diseases that aren't obesity related?
On diabetes, for example, type 2 diabetes, which is directly linked to diet.
Or vitamin deficiencies, or if you injure your legs playing sports or something like that, there are other things as well.
Right, but just to be clear here, the European Court of Justice isn't saying, like, you can just come in and say, hey, I'm fat and give me disabilities. No, you've got to prove your case, et cetera. So, for example, there's some jobs they're very clear in pointing out that you can't do if you're obese, and if you can't do the job, well, then that's a sad day for you, right? If let's make up an example, you're a firefighter and you can't get inside the house and you can't rescue the people, then we can't have you as a firefighter, and it's okay to, quote unquote, discriminate on that basis, because I got to have you being able to do the job.